Hey guys, what is going on? In today's video, we're going to be going over my top 5 favorite baits to fish during the largemouth spawn. If you saw my smallmouth, my top 5 smallmouth baits, the first few are going to be a little bit redundant because those were also in my top 5 smallmouth video. So let's get into it. The first one, just like the smallmouth, is going to be the jig 3/8 to 1/2 ounce with a craw trailer, because again, a lot of the places I fish, that is one of the main forages. Again, I fish a lot of clear water, so it's going to be a natural color, like a watermelon, a green pumpkin, stuff like that. If the water's a little bit dirty, or I'll fish black and blue. If the water's a little bit dirty, you can go up to chartreuse, white, pink, stuff like that. That's just so that you can see it. You know, it's a jig with a trailer. It's pretty simple to fish. Throw it out, you set it on the bag, you kind of just, you know, give it some movement, and it'll irritate the fish and have them strike. I like 3/8 to the 1/2 because I feel that I can get a good movement without the jig actually physically moving off the bed a lot. So that's why I like that little bit heavier of a jig, or the 3/8 and 1/2 ounce isn't really that heavy, but that's why I'm not really throwing a quarter or anything lighter than 3/8 or a 1/2 ounce during the spawn, even if the water is shallow. Next, we're getting into the swim bait or the swim jig. Again, if it's very clear, not many weeds, not much vegetation, a hard rocky bottom with not, you know, much slop or anything around, I'm just going with the hook exposed. It's a lot easier to set the hook. You don't have that little weed guard. Again, color of swim bait kind of depends on the forage that is in the lake or the pond that you're fishing. This is kind of a bluish gray top with a white bottom. It's a 3.75, which I feel for the spawn is plenty big. I use the same size for the spawn with my smallmouth as I do with my largemouth. And then this is just a skirted swim jig. So if you have a weed, some vegetation, some kind of slop in the area where the fish are bedded, then I would suggest throwing this versus the bare hook. Next is a bait that, I mean, I fish these baits a lot of time. I fish the jig year round, swim bait usually fish year round, but this is, like I said in the last video, this is the good old go-to. Seems like when there's nothing catching fish, this always catches fish. First way I rig it is a weightless T-rig. Just throw it out there, let it slowly sink, slowly work it back, whether the fish is on the bed or whether you're just working it. It works wonders. Fish have a hard time resisting this, even though it doesn't have much movement in the T-rig. Next is the wacky rig, again weightless. Throw it out, work it the same way as a weightless T-rig for the Senko, just slowly work it back. This has a lot of action. This will just flutter as it falls or rises. And then the third, which is actually probably my favorite to fish for bed fishing because it has a little bit of weight and I can kind of drag it on the bottom, is the Nico rig, where it has a nail weight in the bottom and you kind of just drag it back. I prefer to have the hook point facing up. I feel that I get better hook sets and I get more hookups that way. The fourth bait is going to be a weighted T-rig. Usually, again, it's going to be a more natural color. A craw pattern or a creature bait is what I prefer to fish the most on the T-rig, because that represents a craw, or what is most of the forage for the largemouth in the lakes and ponds that I fish. 4/0, it's on a 4/0 EWG hook. Again, same with this, any of the baits, you know, with your Senko, your jig, your swim bait. Clear water, I go with, you know, black and blue, watermelon red, green pumpkin. If the water is dirty or murky and I am bed fishing, I'm fishing fish on a bed, then I'm going up to, could be a chartreuse, a white, a pink, mainly because I want to see the fish pick it up. I want to see what my bait is doing. I want to see how the fish is reacting to my bait and what I'm doing to the bait to make the fish react. So really that sight on the bait is more important to me than having a natural color, especially in the dirty water. And then the fifth bait is going to be this. I fish a bigger swim bait. So this is a soft swim bait. This is a trout imitation. I believe it is 5 inches long. And a good amount of the lakes that I'm fishing in this area, the state stocks trout. They stock little fried trout, little smolt trout like this, all the way up to bigger trout, to triploids that could be 2+ pounds. But the bass go crazy for these little trout. So it's a good way. Sometimes if nothing else is working, the fish are super pressured, I can still irritate them enough or get them to bite with that bigger swim bait. Another big swim bait that I like to throw that I don't have any at the moment, I've got quite a few on order, is a bluegill swim bait, 4 to 5 inches, about the same size. It's a soft one. I get both of these are Savage Gear swim baits, soft swim baits. You can have a hard jointed swim bait, a soft jointed swim bait, just anything that kind of matches the natural forage of these fish. So I would suggest if they're feeding on bluegill, get a bluegill swim bait. If they're feeding on trout, get a trout swim bait. If they're feeding on shad, get a shad swim bait, you know, etc., etc. Just kind of match the hatch, like I said in the last video, to what they're mostly feeding on. It's going to be the most natural for them, and it's going to work the best during the spawn, and even that goes for after the spawn. If you match the hatch, match what they're eating, that's just going to be the most effective way to catch bass in general. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe, and I hope that I see you on the next one. Peace.